Well, well, well. Welcome back. It's continuation time. That's right. Here we are, Season 2 of the Reaction Shot podcast. I wasn't in love with movies. I know everyone thought I was, but I wasn't. I loved movies, of course. It was impossible not to love movies. And that was part of the problem. Everyone loved movies. Everyone wanted to make a podcast about them. It exhausted the listeners. Podcasters just wouldn't leave the movies alone. Especially the fans. Christ, the fans. It was embarrassing, really, how everyone fawned over movies. I think, honestly, that was why the movies liked me so much. I protected the movies. I was honest with the listeners. I understood the movies. I loved the movies. I loved the movies. I loved the movies, but was I in love with the movies? I'm so happy to kick off this new season with you, the listeners. So much has happened since season 1, and I couldn't be happier. One of the biggest things to make note of is I am now officially a part of the You Run Podcast Network, a network jam-packed with some amazing creators with a wide range of podcast topics. So hop on over to the You Run Podcast webpage, that's yourunpodcast.com, and check out all the other amazing talents that are featured. But there is one in particular that I'd like to point out, and that's the Aardvark and Friends Do Red Dwarf. Look, I'll be honest and say I had no idea what Red Dwarf was, but after listening to this podcast, I sure do now. Listen as we are taken through all 12 seasons of the 1988 British science fiction sitcom, episode by episode. The podcast has some great conversations with the host, as well as an offering of great knowledge on the show for both the fans and the newbies. So, check out the Aardvark and Friends Do Red Dwarf podcast, found on the You Run Podcast Network page, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. So, let's get into Season 2, Episode 2 of the Reaction Shot podcast with Closer Look. We are diving into Saltburn for a second viewing. And before we start, I leave you with one statement from the film. Eat the bloody pie. Hi everyone, I'm Dave and I love movies. So, welcome to my podcast, The Reaction Shot. In each episode, I'll dive deep into a movie of any genre that holds a special place in my heart. But here's the twist. I bring on a guest who has never seen that movie before, until now. We discuss, dissect, and review from pre to post-production to behind-the-scenes stories and well into its impact on pop culture. Will we agree on everything, or will we have wildly different views? Thanks for hitting play. Let's roll tape and find out. Fade in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reaction Shot podcast. Still here, Season 2. Today we're doing a little bit of a different episode. Today we're doing a follow-up episode to Saltburn. That's right, I have my guest, Brittany, back with me again today to talk about all things Saltburn again. Hey Brittany, what's up?
Nothing. How are you, Dave? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. I'm doing well. I know after we talked about Saltburn and we recorded this first episode, we were like, wait, we have a lot more we want to say. So
Yes.
the idea was kind of born to do a part 2. Obviously, there's no sequel to Saltburn, but there's a sequel to our episode. So that's something kind of fun to look at. So essentially, guys, if you've already listened to our first episode on Saltburn a few episodes back, in that episode, we're going to have all the normal stats that I normally give with all of your box office stuff, the budgets they had to make the film, a quick breakdown of the film. So we're going to skip all of that this time, and we're going to kind of just jump into some of the things that we really wanted to talk about the first time. So it'll be a fun little episode like that. However, since this is the second episode of Season 2, I recently introduced and came up with the idea of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So what I want to do is every episode that we do now, I want to grab an actor that I pick from the film, and we need to connect that actor to Kevin Bacon, and I think this one's going to be a good one. What do you think, Brittany?
I agree. I actually did 2 separate strings of people to Kevin Bacon.
You're getting fancy. Getting fancy. Yeah. I like that. Well, I'm going to let you do the honors. You are my guest host today, so if you want to go ahead and start it off and tell me how we get to Kevin Bacon and who are we starting with, which actor?
Perfect. We are starting with Archie. How do you say his last name?
Mardekwi.
Mardekwi. Archie Mardekwi, who plays Farley Starch, who is Felix's cousin. So we start off with Saltburn. That's the movie that he's in. He was in a movie with Florence Pugh called Midsummer, who was in a movie with Emma Stone called Little Women, the 2019 one, who was in Crazy Stupid Love with Kevin Bacon. David Lindhagen, absolutely obsessed with that movie.
Wait, I absolutely love that. Brittany, guess what? Next month, one of the episodes I'm doing is Crazy Stupid Love because I have never seen it. So the guest that I'm going to have on my episode is actually going to introduce Crazy Stupid Love to me.
I am insanely excited for you to watch that film.
I can't wait.
It's so good. It's so funny. You're going to love it. You're going to love it.
Can't wait. Well, I'm glad you connected it to that. That was a nice little segue to a future episode I'll be doing. You said you have another one as well?
I do. So we have Saltburn goes to Teen Spirit, never seen it, with Elle Fanning, who was in Young Ones with Nicholas Hoult, and he was in the first X-Men The First Class with Kevin Bacon.
Wow, that was a good one. I did see that Teen Spirit. Of course, we look at all the films that these people are in, and try to make these connections. And I did see that Teen Spirit one, and I did see Elle Fanning, but I definitely failed to make a connection, so I moved on. So hell yeah, good job. Those were both really good. Oddly enough, our first one's a little similar.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think you did yours quicker than I did, though. So kudos to you. But we'll talk it out. We'll see. Okay. All right, so we have Archie Mardekwi in Saltburn, who starred in Midsummer with Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh starred in We Live in Time with Andrew Garfield, who was in The Amazing Spider-Man with Emma Stone, who was in Crazy Stupid Love with Kevin Bacon.
Yes! I love how we ended up at Crazy Stupid Love.
We did. That's it. It's our nice little segue into a future episode, so hell yeah, awesome. Great job. Brittany, you won that one. Good job.
Yes.
Yeah. We have a winner, guys.
I love it. No, but I really like this game, so I'm excited for future connections with other movies.
For sure. It was a good way to bring a little fun into it. Okay, so as I mentioned in our last episode, we already talked about all the critic responses, where viewers and everything were. I also introduced for Season 2, I want to talk about maybe 1 or 2 crazy reviews we see online, even if they're just absolutely ridiculous or so negative or so positive that it's kind of like, well, what am I reading? So did you get to find anything good on the internet, Brittany?
I did. There was one that was a 0.5 star. All it said was awful, very graphic.
Wow, okay.
I said, "Oh, that is We really went into depth of why we didn't like.
Thank you for your review.
Jeez. Yes, and then I found another 0.5 star one. Boring, makes no sense as to why Oliver did what he did, and glosses over the whitewashing of the upper class. I agree with pieces of that. Like the whitewashing of upper class. There are certain things that could have been talked about more in depth.
Sure.
Especially with Farley's character and like that whole conversation with him and Felix. About the what are they called? Not handmaids, but handsmen? Yeah.
Handsmen, yeah.
Yeah. And all of that. So I can absolutely see that. But the 0.5, like, there's other things that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that irritate me about reviews sometimes. And this goes with movie reviews, restaurant reviews, just reviews in general. Obviously, they are opinions of the viewer that's watching. So my opinion is, if you're going to leave a review of something, don't just have it be, I was bored. Because that's not a review. That's not a review. So, as you mentioned with the second one, there was a little piece or two that, you could relate to. You watch the film and you're like, okay, I see what they're saying here. But when you get a review where it's just like, I didn't like it. That was boring.
Well, tell me why.
Right. Like, we got to know why, guys. I also hate when people just rate something a star and don't say anything. And I'm like, ugh. I don't know. But
it's like you were just doing it to do it. Like, don't even rate it if you're not going to have some comments.
Obnoxious. Well, so I found 2 reviews. One is a 1 out of 10 and the other is a 3 out of 10. And I want to see what you think of these, Brittany. Do you agree? Do you not? The first one, the title of the review is, "My Lord, what a waste of time." This person says, "Consider myself someone with good taste. I watched this and was disgusted for wasting 2.5 hours of precious time. It is very forgettable and at times very annoying. Nothing to write about this movie. The streaming industry is providing a platform for movies like this, which do not have one good thing about it. Reviews from Internet Movie Database and Rotten Tomatoes can be very misleading. There is no hint of tension, comedy, or style. All I see is pure indulgence of the director. I hope to see reviews which shed light on these kind of meaningless movies. In this era where you don't spend top dollars or put an effort to get to a cinema, honest reviews are the only savior of one's precious time." Okay.
That's so pretentious, bro. Like, chill.
Right? Okay, so his name is Madan, Madan 90185. So, Madan, or however you pronounce that. I do want to let you know that this film was in theaters. It was in theaters for 2 whole weeks. I actually saw it in the theater. So your whole argument that the streaming world was made for these types of things, that's not a good argument there, bud, because this movie was in the theaters and it had a nice little run. Sure, it wasn't in there for months after months, and, you're correct. With the streaming world, we get these movies a lot quicker and things like that, but, that's usually where it ends up finding its audience. But to say that a film is mediocre purely based on the fact that it's now on streaming almost immediately, I don't agree with that. That's
not at all.
That's a whole episode topic we'll do sometime. but
well, because there's a lot of movies that stream straight to your living room, and they're fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm here for it. Like, please do more of those.
Yes, same. Times change. The world changed. COVID, changed the entire world for so many different ways. And the film industry was one of the industries, obviously, that were hurt, and they found a way to provide this type of art to people, and it's kind of stuck. And I don't think that it's fair to base a film based on something as simple as going to streaming quickly. Also, there's no comedy in the film.
Yeah, like, you don't understand dry humor, obviously, but like,
correct. So, Madan, or whatever the hell your name is, I think he needs a better username. I'm going to write a review about his username. I'm just kidding.
All these numbers in here is ridiculous.
Yeah, what does it even mean?
What does it even mean?
Well, oddly enough, the other review that I'm going to share, I only have 2, guys. The other one I'm going to share is from a guy or a girl named K27. What are these numbers?
I don't know. I feel like that's like a default. It's probably their name, their last name, and then just random numbers.
Well, make a real username if you're going to leave a review. Jeez.
You just have a nickname.
Sorry, guys. I'm getting angry over here. I'm protecting my Saltburn, okay?
I love it.
So this review got a 3 out of 10, and the title of the review is, "Seriously? Don't bother." I found this film unpleasant, entitled, and horrifying. I honestly can't understand the high ratings. The characters are stereotypes, two-dimensional, and totally unlikable. But maybe that's the point. The best part was the last 10 minutes, because that was when it was ending. The cinematography is good, and the soundtrack isn't bad. It was just such a cynical, pointless, and completely empty film with nothing original to say. And if I had to pay to see that at the cinema, I'd have wanted a full refund. All the actors are better than this. They don't deserve to be in this turkey. Find a better way to spend nearly 2 hours. This isn't it.
So dramatic.
So dramatic. I'm also reading it very dramatically, but
no, I know, but still, that's how they were typing it.
For sure. That's how I'm reading it. That's how my brain reads these types of reviews. Yeah. So, okay, characters are stereotypes. Now listen, we mentioned this when we watched Saltburn the first time, is that the storyline of Saltburn is not necessarily an original story in terms of that story has been told before in movies, in American literature. But I will say, and again, these are all just my opinions as well, the stereotypes come from a story we've heard before. However, they are not two-dimensional. I can agree they might not be the most likable characters in the world, but that's okay, because that's real life, and that's kind of the point of films that just take these real-world things and, tell the story on screen. But Saltburn does such an original way of telling this story, and even if you can't get fully invested in the story because you are like, yeah, I've seen this before, and maybe the new takes, the new styles, and the risks that they take might not be your cup of tea, you still can't say that it's completely stereotypical and one-dimensional, because they bring so much more to the table visually, the sound, the score, the ideas, and just, to me, that's art. I know, you could sit here and debate art left and right, but that's how I feel about it, and I'm not saying that these people's opinions don't matter, because they do. It's just funny to read reviews like this where I'm like, but did you understand it? Because it sounds like you don't. It sounds like you're waiting for the last 10 minutes.
Right? And also, how did you know it was the last 10 minutes? Stop it.
Yeah.
But on top of what you just said, it's like some people watch movies and all they're expecting the art to be is the actors acting instead of looking at the whole picture, because the film itself is the art, with the actors, with the background, with the set, with the sound. Like we said, sound is a big part in this movie, and it's another character. So if you watch films in a one-dimensional mindset, then you're going to skip that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and again, I do want to say, Brittany, I know you don't love Saltburn. You don't think it's the best movie ever made, but you respect it for what it is, and you've taken all this time to, write down notes and watch it and rewatch it and kind of learn these things. But there's still something there, and that's what like you said, that's what art is, and that's what we're grabbing onto. And we're not just getting this one-dimensional story. We're getting an entire project from top to bottom. Everything you see on screen, everything that was on the page, that is what it's all about. And if all of that stuff failed, by all means, it all failed. There are movies that are like that, unfortunately, but I don't agree that this is it. And I think people are turned off by the risks that this movie takes. I had to laugh because, we were talking about the film. My mom actually, she listens to my podcast a lot, and she was listening to the podcast. I didn't know she was listening to it, and she texted me out of the blue. My little bubble pops up on my phone, and it says, "Mom." Open it up, and it says, "Semen bathwater? Really?"
And you're like, I'm sorry.
I said, "Oh, you're listening to my podcast."
delete it, and then you're just pacing. It's like, what do I do?
Sure,
Skip
Mom.
that part.
Yeah. Next, fast forward. Just go to the end. It's fine.
Yeah, it's like, just pretend I didn't say that.
Yeah. But, that's the thing, and there are shocking things in this film, and I think those shocking things are what turn people off from it. But I think that's what brings originality to it, because there are people in this world, all these risky things this movie takes, there's someone in the world who has probably done that. There's probably lots of people who have done things like that.
Probably more than one.
Probably
They're
more
probably
than one.
doing it right now.
They're probably doing it right now. There is probably a bathtub being licked as we speak, you guys.
Which
Come on.
Which is horrifying.
God.
But hey, it's life.
Hey, it is what it is.
That's life.
Oh, man. Lauren's gonna hear us singing.
I was gonna say I heard you and Lauren singing on the Scream episode.
Oh,
so
no.
it was cracking me up. I hope the next episode that you are doing is a musical. Immediately, High School Musical popped in my head, and I was like, probably not that, but you never know.
So it is not High School Musical. It is a musical. No. Lauren has been begging me to do this for a long time because I torture her because I usually grab horror movies. Yeah. So she was like, you have to do a movie that I want to do. And I was like, okay, Lauren, what movie do you want to do? And she told me the movie, and I was like, oh boy, okay. And she asked me not too long ago, she's like, hey, we're in season 2 now. Like, when are we going to do this episode? So I looked up the movie, and I was like, oh, man, the anniversary's coming up, and it's it's a monumental anniversary, so now I can't even say no. It's drum roll, please. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have like a cool soundboard to just add a drum roll when I want to, but maybe in editing I'll throw it
Next
in there.
time.
Guys never know. Actually, Brittany, you did a good job. We'll leave Brittany's in there. The movie is The Sound of Music.
Well, you've never seen that?
So I saw it when I was younger, like a kid, and I was actually in the play as well, the musical in my high school, and my choir teacher in school, she led the musicals, and I would always audition for the musicals, and she told me, and I'll never forget this, she said, you are an amazing actor, but a horrible singer. So I always just had like little roles. It's fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
We didn't have to be that honest.
Yeah. So it stuck with me. So I will forever be a good actor, but a horrible singer.
But But Sound of Music is a really great movie.
Well, I can't wait to rewatch it and dive into it, and I'm sure Lauren will sing to me, and she'll make me sing at some point in time, so all of you guys can hear my beautiful voice.
I love that. I actually did an audition forever ago because I would do like different modeling things as a kid, and one of the songs that I sang was "Doe, a deer, a female deer."
Hey.
Yeah.
I'll have to have you on in the background doing like little background vocals.
Ray, I'll drop bombs.
Yeah, please. We're gonna make this happen. Going full musical here, guys.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of musicals, let's talk about the music of Saltburn. So we didn't really talk much about the soundtrack of the film, and there's a lot of, so the film takes place in 2006 and 2007, so we're getting a lot of really awesome songs from that era, and I think the music there really brings you back, and that is one of the things that I love about music, is, music just it brings back all these memories, and this film does such a good job because the director, Emerald Fennell, was actually in college during this time, so this was the music that she was listening to. So she, of course, had to pay lots of money to get the rights to some of these songs, including Mr. Brightside. So I didn't know this, and it's weird that I didn't know this, but you have to pay for 2 different types of license for songs. So she featured Mr. Brightside in the film, but Felix and Oliver were actually singing the song in the Jeep while it was playing, so they had to get a license for that too. And I was like, damn, I never realized that. That's wild.
I think it's over a certain amount, like, of time that they're allowed to play it. For instance, I watched this reaction show of The Hills and Laguna Beach, and they can't play the theme song of Hilary Duff because I'm assuming they would have to pay for the rights to do that. But I even sense. Like that small of a clip. So they just kind of like, they'll do like 2 seconds and then they'll start talking. But that's probably what it is, of somebody singing it or playing it.
That's so crazy.
Hopefully the artist actually gets that money and it doesn't go somewhere else.
I'm sure there's
greedy how that works.
Yeah, so that song is Mr. Brightside by The Killers, which, Brittany, you and I are the same age, so that song definitely, that song means a lot. We hear that song, we're like taken right back to, it was senior year of high school, right?
Yep. And it's in The Holiday. Cameron Diaz sings it.
It's The Holiday. It is in The Holiday. Oh.
Yeah.
Probably get a lot of rights to that.
And The Killers, they're so good. Like, that's such a great band to have in a film. Any of their songs.
I agree. 100%. on top of Mr. Brightside by The Killers, we also have Rent by the Pet Shop Boys, which is the song that Archie makes Oliver sing during karaoke, whose lyrics pretty much represents the situation that Oliver is in, and it kind of calls him out for freeloading off of the rich people. But what a great use of that song. I mean, obviously it's used in a very ignorant way, but it's used well. So
it is used well.
What do you have? Some other songs you can think of that were in the film?
Time to Pretend by MGMT. Whenever I heard that song, every time I hear it, I think of Gossip Girl, because that was very just big around that time. I don't know. Music is so nostalgic, and I absolutely love it.
I want to say the synthesizer in that song, right? Like that. I don't want to. Yeah, you just hearing that alone just takes you back, and by them using this in the film as well, it's just kind of like, oh, this is that time period. This is what I was doing, and look what they're doing.
Yes, and even with like how, whenever you hear that song, at least for me, in my brain, everything is in slow motion, and it was essentially like he's walking slowly into the field, meeting up with like these kids who he wants to be them, and it's time to pretend. Like, it's just how it just weaves itself together so perfectly.
Good connection. I like that. Any other songs stick out?
I don't think so, because there was a lot of, it feels more instrumental than actual songs with lyrics.
Sure. Yeah, you're correct. Just as much as there is all these like throwback songs to mid 2000s, obviously the score of the film by Anthony Willis and the London Contemporary Orchestra is phenomenal.
It's fantastic. It's so good. Oh, so I love good. Orchestra. Like, I love a good orchestra.
Yeah,
gets me going.
Yeah, it's two other songs I want to note here. We don't have to spend time on them, but obviously "Low" by Flo Rida and T-Pain. Which is also used during the karaoke scene. Great use of that too. I mean, who the hell wasn't singing to that song and dancing and acting a fool?
Flo Rida?
Yeah, let's. Yeah, we'll not pretend that we don't still listen to that, rock out to it,
and everybody does. Like,
for sure.
Don't ever deny it.
I'm gonna play it after this episode. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. And
our outro if we don't have to pay for it.
Yes. Yes, please. If I have to pay for it, absolutely.
Right,
not.
Like, we can't do that. So sorry.
Yeah. Also, This Modern Love by Block Party. The reason I'm calling that song out is because I do think it's a really good song, but also, speaking of the times, Block Party had a song in The O.C., which was one of my favorite shows around the time that this show was out, or this movie takes place, and I remember being like, oh, I really like this song, like, who's this band? And I'm like, Block Party. So then, all of a sudden I was like really into Block Party, never heard of them before, but I thought that was really good use there, just because, as I mentioned, that song kind of debuted, one of those songs debuted on the OC, and I kind of, found that song, This Modern Love, by that, so then hearing that in this movie just kind of took it back, but, I definitely give big credit to the soundtrack, and I'm sad that we didn't spend a lot of time on it, on the first episode, but we did talk about the one song that everyone knows and loves, which is Murder on the Dance Floor by Sophie Ellis-Bextor. Yeah.
Yes.
So that song now for the rest of time, if you have seen Saltburn, have heard of Saltburn, or saw a clip on TikTok, you will always remember Murder on the Dance Floor being the ending of the film and the big naked Barry Keoghan scene around the mansion. So
yes.
That'll be forever
great. It's such a
great.
Great song.
And it's such a good song.
Honestly.
It really is, and I had never heard it before. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we talked about that part, but yeah, I had never heard of it, and all of a sudden after this movie, the way this movie caught on, all of a sudden it was just like everyone was like, "Ow, Murder on the Dance Floor, my favorite song," and we're like, "You never heard of it? Don't act like."
But honestly, it was probably big in Europe, and we're just behind the times. And
we're goofy like that.
We are goofy like that.
All right, Brittany. So we want to talk a little bit about these characters here, and the one character that we didn't really get to talk about as much as we wanted to was good old Farley Starts. So I want to ask you, and if you want to take your time and elaborate, or things that you kind of put together about who Farley is. The question I ask you is, Who is Farley? Is he a villain? Or why is he so bitter?
So I do have... Farley is a very complex character. Because I think he sees his cousin, who is very popular. Everybody loves him. Everybody knows him. Yeah, he's in his friend group, but he's not associated with him in that status of being wealthy. Because, yes, his mother should have been inherited with the money that I guess her family built along the way. She didn't get that because her running away to America, which I'm assuming her family and parents didn't like, because clearly Farley is mixed race, and his dad is probably African American, so he does have a different type of view of the world. So in turn, I don't think he's a villain. I think he's a villain of circumstance because of what his life ended up, even though his uncle does help him with the money and to pay for school and all of that stuff. But then he fucks off because he thinks that he could be that way, but in reality, people are unamused by him. Like that teacher, whenever he's like, where is this kid? He's 20 minutes late. And then he comes in his robe, oh, I'm here, my mom, he uses his mother's name to get by in a place where he's actually not from, and don't necessarily accept him because of who he is.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. I definitely agree with that. And I do believe, I feel like I might remember, I feel like there's a part in the film where they make a reference to him being biracial, and they're like, oh, you're the cousin? Kind of
yeah,
yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely glad you brought that up too. Yeah, I feel like he doesn't feel like he's really a part of this world, and I think that's something that Oliver grabs onto. He knows that that's what's going to, obviously rip him out of this family. So yeah, I think Farley's a really good. I think he's a really good character. I think he is misunderstood, in my opinion. I think Oliver brings out the worst in him, for sure.
Yes. Because I think he also sees Oliver for who he is and what he's trying to do. So essentially he's trying to protect his family, but his family is too flighty and la la la, nothing can happen to us type deal, that it just doesn't click.
Yeah. I do think he might be, other than Oliver, I think he might be one of the most compelling characters, only because there are a lot of layers there, and because he also is kind of he's similar to Oliver to an extent, and it's almost like I feel like Oliver's intentionally the way that he is, and I feel like situationally Farley has kind of become that, and the two of them really play off of each other. Does that make sense?
Yes,
that's just how that's definitely how I see it. But I do think he's a very compelling character. I think he adds a lot of depth to the movie, and kind of like the Batman and Joker type thing, where those two are kind of battling out for where they're at personality wise and their intentions, and like you said, he can see what Oliver's up to. So oh, Farley. What are you going to do with him?
Right? Oh, Farley. And I mean, honestly, he's better off because he didn't get killed.
That's true.
He said, Skadoodle, I gotta go.
So,
yes, I got kicked out, but I'm not coming back.
Yes. So, now with that being said, we know that nothing happened to Farley. Farley got kicked out of Saltburn because of Oliver. But, from our understanding, he survived. We didn't see him die or anything like that. So, with assuming that he's still alive, with the way Saltburn ends, what do you think? How do you think Farley will react if he finds out that Oliver now owns Saltburn? What do you think his reaction would be if we had to write the next step?
I honestly don't even know, because he would be so flabbergasted. What do you mean? but at the same time, he probably wouldn't be shocked. Yep. I don't know. Like, I would actually love to know if, not necessarily if there's like a second movie to explain the aftermath of all of that, but like if there was a little blurb in her notes saying like, oh, Farley knew about it or found out about it and then does this. Or maybe Archie himself has an idea of how he would react if there was an extension of the character.
Yeah, I would love to hear, what Emerald Fennell's idea would be. Not that she has to write a part 2 or anything, but kind of like maybe like a short essay that she shares on social media. Like this is what the next, what happens next in the lives of these characters, because it does kind of end ambiguously, and I don't even know if I can say it's a happy ending or a sad ending, because sure, Oliver gets all of Saltburn, but he's alone.
Like, what does he do next? Yeah, right? Like, what happens next?
And, as we mentioned, Farley's still out there. So I think that if Farley caught wind that, everyone who has passed away, all the things that had happened, and that Oliver is now the sole owner of Saltburn, I do think that Farley would find a way to get back there and maybe take Oliver down.
Contact Duncan. Yeah. Contact Duncan and be like, hey, we got to team up. Get this kid out of here.
Yeah. Well, that's my next question, too. Like, so... how do you feel about Duncan? I know we talked about him a little bit more in the first episode, but, Duncan kind of faded into the background. We talked about the idea of the original ending where Duncan is actually serving breakfast to Oliver at the mansion after everyone dies and he signed the papers. But the way it's presented in the film, we don't know what happened to Duncan. We don't see him at all in the ending scene when Oliver's dancing through the mansion. So do we assume that Duncan was finally like, fuck this, I've had enough, get me out of this place, I'm not going to work for this idiot? Or do you think that he would also, I could see him teaming up with Farley and being like, all right, let's take this motherfucker down. He killed people, obviously. He destroyed everyone's lives. He killed
your family. He killed my family. Yeah. Well, because I think Duncan was a part of that family. Because I watched an interview with the man who plays Duncan, and I want to say, I forget which interview I watched, but I want to say that he said that he basically was born into that house because his, like, backstory in his head, I think his mother was the maid prior to, obviously, him being the butler. So, like, he grew up there, he knows the ins and outs, he knew the family his whole life. So he is, like we both said, like, he is Saltburn. So he probably, hopefully, if he didn't get killed like the rest of them, hopefully he finds Farley, says, let's get this Joker out of here and figure something out. Maybe gets his parents, Oliver's parents, finds them and be like, hey, get your son. Please.
Yeah.
He's nutty.
He is nutty.
Get him out of here. Yeah.
Man, Oliver's parents are just like, I don't want nothing to do with this kid.
But also, I still wonder about them, because that whole interaction, her grabbing his arm, I was like, yo, that woman is nuts. Like, I can see why he probably wanted to leave. But at the same time, maybe not.
Yeah, and this is why when I read reviews where people say it's one-dimensional and there's not a lot happening and whatever, I've seen this film before. There are so many little things. Like, you mentioned the arm grabbing. I didn't even know. I mean, I might have noticed it, but I didn't really think about it. But I didn't notice it in the same way you did. But hearing you say it and bring it up, it's like, man, that does mean something. And all these little things that happen, everything means something. And there's so many little tiny details. And this probably goes with a lot of films. But so many little tiny details. If you're not paying attention or you're already checked out, you've already come up with this conclusion like, okay, cool, he's going to see his parents. He lied about it. Yippee-doo. I've seen that before. There's so many more layers to it. There, like... what was the reason
because why did he lie about it? Like, why did he make up a whole backstory of his life that had nothing to do with anything. And it's like, oh, actually, both my parents are alive. My dad's not an alcoholic. He's not dead. Like, there's so many different things.
Yes. Okay, so Emerald Fennell, if you're listening, hear me out. I need a prequel.
Just a little essay.
Yeah, just a little. I need a little essay. Okay, little essay could be a couple 57,000 pages. We can have
a whole script. It's fine.
A whole script. Yeah, that's cool. That turns into a prequel. But then I also need a spin-off about Duncan. I also need a spin-off about Oliver's parents, and then I need a sequel.
And a spin-off of what is Farley's mom's name?
Ooh,
I forget.
I don't,
because I can hear that teacher. Like, you know what I want? I want a prequel of James, Elsbeth, Farley's mom, that teacher, like, of them in that college, because clearly that guy never left. Like, he just became a professor. And then we can see how they got to where they are, and then it'll explain why the kids are the way that they are.
All right, this sounds like an HBO miniseries
hey,
that I think needs to happen. So, Emerald Fennell, I'll give you my number.
Yes.
We'll chat.
I have ideas.
Me and Brittany got you.
This.
Yeah. Just a small meeting, that's all we need.
Yeah, just little. And it can just be, like, real quick. The prequel, well...
Real quick. Yeah, real quick.
Yeah. Like, a prequel, first season, can be about... the parents being kids. Second season, Duncan, it can be simultaneous because they live in the same no, not the same town, but close enough. Duncan, Oliver's parents in the mansion itself, and then season 3 can be the conclusion of it all.
I mean,
easy.
I think that's very easy. It wouldn't cost you too much money or time.
No.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like that's a good 15-year plan.
Sold. I'm there. I'm there.
Hey, maybe even shorter, like 3 years.
14.
5.
Oh.
14. 14. Oh.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah, I mean 13. So, yeah. But no, I mean, there's... I personally, and I know that you agree with me, I do feel like Pamela, we also need something about Pamela.
Yeah.
Poor dear Pamela.
Poor dear Pamela. Poor dear Pamela.
That's the name of the show.
Right? That's the name of the show. And we can see how she got in her predicament. And
Yep. So this episode is actually going to be called Saltburn, the Wishful Thinking Sequels and Prequels.
Yes.
Brought to you by the Reaction Shot Podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. So again, I do feel like there's so many layers to this movie, and maybe what actually is what frustrates people isn't that things are one dimensional. I think what frustrates people is that there are so many layers, there are so many unanswered things, there are so many past things that make these characters who they are, that they don't have all of that stuff to grab onto. And a lot of people nowadays, no offense to anyone, but sometimes I do feel like people need spoon-fed information. Where nowadays I feel like art has shifted in music and film, TV, whatever, literature. You have to work a little bit. You got to fill in these blanks. You got to kind of come up with, okay, so why does this person act this way? And I'm not saying you have to write a whole essay in your brain about what that person is, but I think that just adds so much mystery to it, but in a good way. I see it as a positive. So I think what that person's idea of one-dimensional is actually the opposite. I think it's so dimensional that you don't know exactly what to grab onto, and some people don't like to do that work. So,
especially whenever they just want to go be entertained and leave.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, no, if you want to watch a movie, then watch it. Mm-hmm. But don't, if you're going to critique it, then you actually have to watch it.
Right.
Like, just don't review it. It's like, oh, I saw it, it was dumb.
Yeah.
Because essentially that's what I did the first time I watched Saltburn. I was like, this was ridiculous. Why did I waste my time? I was one of those.
You broke my heart. You broke my heart.
Big mad. But like, after watching it a couple times, even rewatching it before this episode, I noticed whenever Felix and Oliver are in the room, before Oliver just annoys Felix so much, and he's like, please stop trying to clean my room, you're being annoying, get out. his curtain is closed and it's red, but there's a little peak of light coming from the outside. And the fact that it's like, okay, so later on, same scene, different meaning, because now Felix is dead. The whole curtain is drawn and everything is red. So I'm sure that has some meaning to it.
Sure.
And it's like that, even that, and that was a 45-second scene.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, like, if you're going to critique it, watch the movie. Like, actually watch it.
Right. I live for that shit. And you know what? I am not, what I'm about to say is I'm not saying anything bad about superhero films, Marvels, things like that. These quick blockbuster films. Oh, sure. I do too. I mean, I'm a sucker for Batman.
I'm a sucker for, like, the new Superman. I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited for it. I can't even handle it.
Yeah. So, so bringing that up, it's like when I go see those movies, or maybe not even those movies, but some, you know what I'm saying. Yeah. I do feel like there are movies that are made to be a little bit more mindless, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
No.
But if you're going to go see a movie like Saltburn, you can't expect something like a Marvel film. You can't expect...
I mean, because it's a different... Not genre. It's like a different format of a film. I think independent films...
Sure.
Though I don't know if you would consider... I guess you would consider Saltburn independent. I don't really know, like, the categories of how you would categorize an independent film versus... not necessarily a blockbuster, but another one. But, like, independent films, I think, have more depth and more substance to actually go off of. Mm-hmm. But yes, I mean, so if you take Marvel, it does have depth. There are, like, sequences that you have to go through to get to the end story. Mm-hmm. And it's great, but it's also just not just superheroes, but it's just superheroes.
Right.
It's an underlying meaning of other things, but essentially it's just Thor and his hammer and Black Widow and her, like, they're, I don't know.
No, I agree.
I think their depths, sorry, I keep cutting off.
Oh, no, keep talking. I want to hear what you have to say.
I think their character stories, like I watched Black Widow, and that's just the character development of her. I think that's a more in-depth story. But if you're just watching, like, Avengers, they're doing a task.
Sure.
Like, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that does make sense. I think the connection I want to make is, we'll say, Tim Burton's Batman. Okay? Great film. Mm-hmm. If you watch it, it's very comic booky. It's like bringing the comic book to life, which is great. Yes. You know, it's a little darker, but it's got a lot of that goofy comic book type stuff in it. But it's not being made to be like, well, the reason Batman stood this way was because of his upbringing. Like, do you know what I'm trying to say? So
yes, because if you compare that to the Robert Pattinson Batman, right, like, they went into depth of how he became the version of the vigilante Batman. Yeah, but in Tim Burton, it's just like, not gimmicks, but like Danny DeVito has that little thing as the Penguin, and like Nicole Kidman, it's a love story. It's like different. Is she in that one?
She's in the... No,
she's in the Val Kilmer one. Yeah. That was that blonde lady. I don't forget what her name is. But anyway. I see too many movies. I have no idea.
That's okay. It's okay. I do that sometimes too. I'm like,
Yeah, it's like the wrong one.
Yeah, I don't know. There's movies are there to be, it's art. You're going to get art that's so blatant in your face. Here's a tree with a sunset and a canoe in the lake.
Yes.
You know? And then you get another piece of art where that tree, the canoe, the sunset are kind of all discombobulated, and there's splashes here and there, but it tells a story about this young kid who grew up on a boat. I don't know. Whatever.
Yes. But yes, exactly. Yeah. Some of it, sometimes it's straightforward. Sometimes you actually have to, like, really peel the layers to get to the meaning of all of it.
Yep. Some movies are onions, and you got to peel that shit, okay?
Hell yeah. And hopefully you don't cry too much.
I was going to say it might make you cry, but deal with it.
Yeah, deal with it. Deal with those emotions. Hold them, not hold them in, but like just, let them happen. Let the emotions emote.
Yeah, let them emote. Let's talk a little bit about Venetia. Mm-hmm. Venetia, we did talk about her quite a bit in the first episode, but Venetia, I kind of categorized her as a wounded soul. I think that she has a lot of psychological scars that she's not able to fully let heal. And what is your take on Venetia?
I think that she is another victim of circumstance because she, I don't think, stood a chance solely because how her mother speaks of her, about her eating disorder, about she just throws herself at men, she's a masochist, and it's like, well, how did she become this way? Mm-hmm. And I think it's because Elsbeth didn't want anything to do with her, because she's very like, oh, she'll figure it out, she'll take care of herself, but she probably did that, she clearly did that way too soon, so it just stuck with her, and she had to grow up figuring out herself.
Yeah, I feel like her mother Elsbeth is someone that was constantly putting her down and psychologically fucking her up per se. And Oliver came along, and Oliver saw that. Oliver saw that weakness. Oliver saw that wounded spirit that she had, and he knew exactly how to get her. And it's so evil. It's so dirty.
It's so sickening.
I love the scene. I believe it's the first scene when he really gets to talk to Venetia alone. It's nighttime, the way the lighting is, and he's at the top of the stairs, and he's just a shadow. And the way that Barry Keoghan, with Emerald Fennell probably telling him what to do, but the way that, he kind of commands her attention, and the way that he walks down the steps to her, the way that it's filmed, again, how he's just a shadowy figure, but his movements, this is going to sound weird, but his movements are he's very seductive with his movements, and all he's doing is walking down the steps. And he stands above her. He comes to her. He stands, kind of towers over her while she's sitting down. And I think that's an innuendo right there of just his power over her. She's sitting down. He's standing up, above her. She's, smaller in size than he is. Plus, she's sitting down, and he's 6 foot
and
or
she
whatever.
She looks like a little girl because she looks so innocent and kind of fearful of him, solely because he is new. She doesn't really know him, but also how he's speaking to her, because all the things that he says to her in that moment, Elsbeth said to him of why she's like that. So he uses her mother's words against her, and that's probably what she's heard her whole life.
Yeah.
And it is dark, and him being a dark shadow of her subconscious.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah,
it's spooky.
It's so spooky.
To if you really how you just described that, yeah, that scene is actually really dark and scary.
It's so dark, and
Jesus.
When you watch this movie again, you just pick up on little things here and there, and it's something as simple as the lighting and the camera work, and of course the acting. Mm-hmm. And Barry Keoghan, she's powerless to him. It's yeah, absolutely, Oliver, no problem, and it's whether she's attracted to him or not, she is now, because he has that, and that's who Oliver is, and he finds that little thing that he can grab onto, similar to when he's talking to Elsbeth outside, when it's just the two of them, and he tells her how beautiful she is. She thrives off of being told she's beautiful and things like that. she's obviously obsessed with, the glimmery type things. So hearing that she looks beautiful, but she doesn't react any further than that, and it's almost like he's shot down, so he doesn't go too much further into that. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to need some time with you. Like, I'm going to need a little bit more time to figure out how to break you down.
Well, because people probably say that to her so often, and it's just like, just another one.
Mm-hmm.
Because she even mentions how she's been with both guys and girls, so people would just see her beauty of some level aspect her whole life. Again, prequel. We could see that at their school. It was probably... Because that boy... Oh, no, different. That was Farley's mom. But still, that dynamic is probably wild.
Probably. You made a good point to me after the episode when we talked about maybe just having a little bit more conversation on the film. You said Elspeth and Venetia never interact with each other, but Elspeth has a lot to say about her daughter regardless. And that is so true, because they never really interact, and if they do, it's very singular word and no emotion. And there's a couple of scenes where she's blatantly talking about her daughter being, for lack of better terms, slutty, getting around, and that I don't think that's the case. I think she's again, a wounded soul who's trying to figure out her place in the world. So
she's just a kid, and her mom needed her to just be a child, opposed to another one of her. Yep. Even though she was like, none of the stuff that she does improves the way that she looks, so I don't understand why she even bothers.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I will knock you out, lady. Leave me alone.
So rude.
Rude. So rude.
That's what's so interesting to me about the vampire scene. When Oliver and her do get intimate, and it's that time of the month, and he just kind of brushes it off like, well, whatever, like, lucky for you, I'm a vampire. I think on a surface level, they're just kind of like, oh, we're gonna go there, but I think there's definitely a lot of psychological type things to that too, because that's part of being a woman, and she and some people will see this act being grotesque, and so she feels dirty, and she's like, I can't do it because of this reason, but Oliver assures her, like, she's so beautiful that it just doesn't matter. So this is the first time that even at her most vulnerable, at a point when she might not feel at her best, her body's going through something, Oliver still is like, well, this is what I want. You're what I want. So, and I think that's dirty power right there too. Like
Oh, absolutely. And it's so controlling, because then even before that happens, he's talking about, like, tomorrow at breakfast, you're going to eat everything, and you're going to sit there, and you're going to hold it, like, choke it down. And she's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, she knows that she doesn't want to do that, because she can't. Like, mentally, psychologically, she cannot, but he knows that he has some type of control that he's gaining on her and the family.
Yep. Wild.
Wild.
Wild. Oh God. I'm sorry. I love this movie, and I feel like I could just keep talking about it.
I know. Like, whenever you break down scenes, it is actually really interesting and fun to talk about. I understand some of the people's reviews of, like, how they don't like it and blah, blah, blah. Like, I get it. Surface level. The more you watch it, the more you get it.
Yeah.
Some people don't necessarily want to watch the same movie over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm not that one of those people. I do that a lot. Yeah. And I don't care.
Yeah. That's why it's hard sometimes to get people for this, to do episodes and stuff, because I'm like, you probably have to watch it at least twice, but we all know my three watch rule. But
wait, what is your three watch rule? You watch it, then you do notes, and then...
Well, not even just in comparison with the podcast, but just in real life, I always say that every film, before you can give a full review, a film should get at least 3 watches. That's how to fairly view a film. The first time you're watching it visually, second time it's more audio, and third is you're finally putting all the pieces together.
Because you know what's happening and you know what to look for. I like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Not to say that every time I review a film, I've seen it 3 times, but more so than not, the movies I have seen more than three times, I definitely have a better analysis of what I like, what I don't like, what works, what doesn't work. And I think that's where you can really get your full understanding of the film. And some people just don't want to do that. They're like one and done, and that's okay.
And that is okay. You have your opinions. You have your time that you want to put in. Yeah, there is another one review that I wrote down, which was 1 star. Whenever I read it, I heard it in Elsbeth's voice and tone because I don't know. It says, "Another dreadful film. I'm sick of watching dreadful movies. This is rubbish."
Oh my god! I think Elsbeth did.
Yeah, she had to have. It's like, because it's very just like how she speaks, and it's very, her voice is very on a cloud type deal. That actress, I like her. I watched another film that she was in. I forget what it was called, but I was like, she's good. Mm-hmm. She's really good. She's a good one.
Yeah, that also brings us to her wonderful husband, Sir James Caton. Obviously played by the wonderful Richard E. Grant, who also does a phenomenal job. He is super funny. So when someone tells me there's no comedy in this film to keep them excited, like you said, they clearly just don't understand dry, fast, sarcastic humor. So that's rude. But I think he does such a good job in this film, and he's such a tension breaker. But his character he just ignores everything. Everything to him is okay. He's going to find that little bit of rainbow that's peeking through those dark clouds, and he's going to hold on to that and grasp it. And it's not until the scene after Felix dies that he finally lets loose, and he just loses his shit. And I do think that, I like to consider myself a pretty positive person. I can't say that I'm much like him, because I do think he's a little bit over the top. But it's good to, be a positive light, and, sometimes when things are going a little bit south, to try to find that good stuff that you guys can hold on to. But damn, he was really holding a lot of shit back, because when he does finally have his breakdown after Felix passes away, and they're having that scene in the dining room, woo, he lets it all out, and he is not a very happy man, and he is very distraught about the death of his son. And what do you think about Sir James Caton as a character?
I think, he is absolutely hilarious. The stuff that he says, you're just like, oh my god, you just casually said that and continued on with your day. Perfect.
Awesome.
But I think that with him, whenever Felix dies, like, he can't change it with his money, and I think that's why he snapped out so hard, because he asks Oliver, like, how much can I pay you to leave this place? Yeah. And I forget, that was after Felix died.
Yep.
And it was obviously no amount of money that was going to make him leave, nor would it bring his son back. Right. So the freak out was warranted.
Sure. I agree.
But I can also see, like, why he unraveled, because he's so used to, I think, getting and keeping what he wants.
I agree. Yeah, I think he was definitely a positive glue to this family, and once I think he finally had his breaking point, it was kind of like, it was almost like he was looking through rose-colored glasses and was finally able to shatter those lenses and really see everything for what it was. And, the color contrast in that scene with the red room, everything about it just brought a lot of tension. And, Farley having his little breakdown, and good old Venetia having her completely spaced out with her wine. Yeah, it just, I don't know, such a great scene. And I think that scene is where Richard E. Grant really shines in terms of him getting away from what we have seen so far from the film. So I think that was thought it was great writing there too. Yeah,
actually, you are right. Like, throughout the film and his part, he's very, like, upbeat and chipper, and he's like, like, let's go walk, and, like, let's go through the field, and he's just happy-go-lucky guy. But there is an underlying, like, I will lose my shit.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be pretty, and it wasn't.
Yeah, he's just such a happy guy. So then when reality really set in, so I think Saltburn is almost like a fantasy to an extent. And I'm talking about the place of Saltburn, not the film of Saltburn. The place of Saltburn where they reside is almost like a fantasy. It's beautiful, it's huge, it's quiet. There's nobody around to bother them. They have everything you could ever think of. So it's like a resort. Like their house is like
it's a paradise.
Resort.
They never have to leave.
So everything to him is just like, I love this place. Everything's so wonderful. I did say this in the first episode, but I love when they're doing karaoke and he goes, the words are on the screen. That's the best part.
I know, it's hilarious. Like he's so new to like what the peasants do in their everyday joyful lives.
Yeah, and
their
it's
activities.
Yeah, and it's not him being ignorant. It's just I feel like he was always a part of the Saltburn type world. So when he sees these little trickles and someone like Oliver who comes from pretty much nothing, or at least something that's not like this, it amazes him and he gets excited. Like, oh, look at all these great new things and all that. So like I said, when those rose-colored glasses are shattered and everything that he loved about the place that he was, his safety, was gone when Felix died. It was just kind of like, then he saw everything for what it was, and he was like, I don't like this world. This is not it. Because that's actually like the last part that we saw of him, right? We don't really see much after that. Yeah,
because also how you just said that whenever like his world crumbles, so essentially here comes Oliver, this outsider, in his home that he's spent his whole life, nothing ever happens, everything's perfect, paradise. And then his son dies in his paradise, and he's like, hold up. What is this? Hate this real world reality bullshit.
This doesn't happen to Saltburn.
Yeah, he's like, how can I write this check to get you out? And Oliver looked at him and was like, ain't nothing getting me out of here. And it's like, oh, he's looking down the barrel of the devil. And he can't get out of it. And then one by one, they all goes.
Yep, it does. It all fades away. Saltburn is still intact, but never what it was to begin with.
Yeah.
So, is there any other characters that you really want to talk about? I mean, I know we can talk about Felix. Do you have anything you want to say about Felix?
Honestly, not really. Like, I noticed different things, like how he has a wing on his side rib, which I noticed before, but I didn't notice. Because then I was like, oh, the fact that he's wearing the wings before he dies, like, he's always been that angel-type character throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
So the fallen angel is very, like I said in part one, I think, like a metaphor. Because he was always, everybody loved him, everybody was drawn to him, and Oliver the Moth was drawn to him. And honestly, I think Oliver thought, in my head, it seemed like Oliver felt like he was taking a burden away from Felix, of he doesn't have to worry about him being all over him because he can just be himself around Oliver. Opposed to everybody else, he has to put on a show.
Yeah.
So he was doing him a favor, but in reality, he was not.
Yeah.
He just was a nuisance to his life, but he didn't realize it. Well, he realized it, but then Oliver made up with a story about his dad dying and sucked him back in, and that was his demise. R.I.P.
Felix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot to talk about Felix, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I just feel like Felix was more of like an everyday person.
He was just a kid. He was just a kid trying to have a good time.
Yeah, he's trying to figure it all the fuck out, and then he figured it all the fuck out by dying. It's fine. Everything's fine. Ugh, rude.
Rude. So rude.
Let's talk about the clothing. You want to talk about some of the outfits in this film. So, a fun little fact about the clothing. Emerald Fennell lent the cast some of her own clothes, which she had actually worn and still had from 2006 and 2007. She wanted to make sure she gave an accurate sense of the fashion during that time period in which the film was set. This also included an Alexander McQueen jacket that Fennell had worn while being a student at Oxford at the time, and which the character Elsbeth wears during the film itself.
Oh, is it that It's like blue and green or something like that.
I think so, yeah.
I really like that. That's cool. Vintage. Yeah. We love a vintage piece.
For sure. Yeah, we did talk about some of the outfits in the first episode. More importantly, the beginning of the film, when we see when Oliver's watching all the kids outside before he starts talking to Felix and stuff. And, we have like the Live Strong like rubber bracelets and things like that. Those were actually pretty prominent back then. I always, at the time, so in 2006, I was a senior in high school. I always wore like a regular T-shirt with a polo underneath and the collar popped out.
A little pop collar.
I was one of those guys. I'm sorry.
Did you have spiky hair too?
I did so many crazy things with my hair. I would do different styles all the time just to try to see what's cool, and who told me they looked awesome.
Yeah. And then you look back and you're like, why did I do But here's the thing, everybody did it. So it was just the moment. Yeah.
I went to a dance with this girl. Yes, with this girl. I don't know who approves of my hair, but I look at it and it's like spiky, but it's like out and then like to the side, and it's all over. I don't know what's going on. There's bangs. There's like half bangs, half no bang. Oh,
it sounds like it's giving like a Ryan Cabrera.
It's very Ryan Cabrera, yeah. That's actually very accurate, and I hate that you made that connection. But yeah, that's we'll just say that's what I was going for.
Again, it was part of the time.
It was part of the times.
Like, the guys would straighten the bang, but then, like, or Jason from Laguna Beach in the Hills, like, he had that hairstyle. So.
People used to tell me I looked like him in school, so that makes sense.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. All right.
Full circle.
Full circle. What were your outfits in this time period? What were you dressing up as in senior in high school?
Honestly, I was more of a sweatpants girly. I wore pajama pants a lot. My mom absolutely hated it. She was like, stop dressing like this. I'm like, it's comfortable. It was. Like, I couldn't be bothered. But I loved Delia's. Delia's was my go-to. And it was just that very preppy, but hipster before it was popular again now. I don't know. Bell bottoms were my jam.
Bell bottoms,
like the patch jeans. That was more in middle school because I was so over dressing up, whatever you call that.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I was more of a pajama pants girly.
Okay. I mean, and at the same time, that was very popular back then. Like, even like, I knew girls who wore like non-PJ type shirts, but then they wore like the PJ bottoms.
Yes. Yeah, so like a tight shirt up top or like a crop, and then the baggy. Yep, that was such a vibe.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how that started. Just one day, people were just doing it. And I said, oh, bet, we're doing this? Cool. And my mom saw me walk out of the house. She goes, what are you wearing and why are you wearing that to school? I said, oh, I can't wear this? She goes, no.
Be like, I beg to differ. Bye, Mom.
Yeah. I was like, oh, see ya. Have a great day. Ran out.
Oh, shit. Well, yeah, I mean, I do think this film kind of captures all of that. And in that scene alone, you can just kind of see, the men and women dressed up that way. I think Venetia, I think she had like red or pink, like clip-on hair things in her hair.
She did. I think it was the first scene that we see her. She's like sitting in the other room watching Oliver walk in. She has those like mermaid-esque pants.
Yeah.
But it was very like just colorful, sparkly, subtle.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like that was pretty popular during that time period too. So I think Emerald Fennell and whoever else, did the outfits and stuff. I didn't research that part, so I apologize. But whoever was helping them all throw these outfits together and stuff, I think they really captured that time pretty well too. So I definitely give them props to that.
Agreed. And like the high fashion, because they are in the upper class of England. It especially Venetia's clothes reminded me, and Elizabeth, of Gossip Girl again, because they like high end things. Blair Waldorf, it was giving Serena.
Yep.
So, and that was during that time, 2005 to 2010. Yeah, but it definitely captured all of those moments of the fashion that was happening during that time.
Yep. Yeah, so good job there. Yeah, I think, was there anything specific that you really wanted to chit-chat about?
No, not really. Maybe just a quick touch on The Talented Mr. Ripley, because I did watch that movie eventually to prep for this episode, just to see the comparison of it, because a lot of people have mentioned that. And I can absolutely see the similarities of the two stories, but different in a way, because Matt Damon's character in The Talented Mr. Ripley would change... not necessarily change himself to, like, adapt to his area, but he would, like, learn how to play the piano so he could meet the rich guy who he, like, goes over to Europe to get his son and all this stuff, and ends up doing what he does and taking over his life. Yeah. And, well, not even his life, just him. He becomes Tom Ripley? I forgot what his last name is. But, yeah.
Dickie Greenleaf.
Yes, Dickie Greenleaf.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought this up. This was something we wanted to talk about too. Yeah, a lot of people compare this movie with The Talented Mr. Ripley. As you said, I can definitely see the comparisons. I absolutely love The Talented Mr. Ripley. I saw that movie in the theaters when it came out. I will definitely be doing an episode on it, so I'm not going to get too in-depth with this here. But yeah, I think Oliver and Tom Ripley have very similar types of things going on here, and where they do differ, as you mentioned, is Tom was more about becoming that person, so he would learn exactly how to be this person, where I think Oliver finds the weakness. So Oliver's like preying on the weakness, like the weak side of that person, to take them down. And Tom is going on the things that make these people who they are, so not their weak sides.
Yeah, he like mirrors them and absorbs their personalities, their just essence, which is crazy too.
And there's a scene in the first episode of Saltburn that we did together. We talk about them using the mirrors in Saltburn as kind of representation of Oliver's multiple personalities. There is a scene in The Talented Mr. Ripley where Tom is sitting on a bed, and there is a closet door that has a full-length mirror on it. And that closet door keeps opening and closing because they're on a boat. I believe it was a boat. It keeps kind of like opening and closing as he's sitting there, and it's like cutting his body and his framing in half, and it just keeps changing. And I just think there's a lot of little subtext there with exactly what they're trying to say, and I think that's awesome.
Because he had to morph into all of those people.
It's wild. Wow.
That is, I need to rewatch it, because I think I noticed that, but not really. That scene. Because I know what scene you're talking about, and I might have for a split second. Yeah, I did only watch it once.
You got two more.
I got two more.
That's two more. Then you report back.
Yeah, because I didn't take notes on it. I just watched it. So
sure.
Yeah, but I will absolutely rewatch it and let it marinate in my brain.
Yeah, we'll do that episode sometime down the road for sure, because that one sticks with me a lot. Yeah, so I do understand people who are like, I've seen this movie before. It's The Talented Mr. Ripley. It's done much better. I can see it. I don't agree with it, but they're definitely in the same field of these that we talked about in the Scream 2 episode about my newfound love for sports. So I just said field. That's about all I got.
Yay, sports. Love that.
Yeah, sports, guys. Check out my new podcast, Sports Central. Dave.
Sports and things.
Sports and things. Oh, no. Just crazy.
I love it. I love it.
So, anything else you want to touch on with this for our second episode of Saltburn?
No, I think
we can do a part 3 too. It's fine.
Hey, if we figure out something else that we want to talk about, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But for this episode, I think we pretty much, yeah.
We rounded out what we set out to do for the first episode. We kind of filled in the spaces here. I do want to say, do you have any memorable quotes that you can remember that you like a lot? If you don't, that's okay. I know there's a lot of good. It's okay. I do have one.
I remember like the first part 1. I said the moth.
Mm-hmm.
Where did I write it? With Benicia and Oliver in that bathtub scene of how like she was just disgusted on how well he was able to infiltrate. There it is. I think you're a moth. Quiet, harmless, drawn to shiny things.
She pinpointed that.
Yeah.
That's that scene. As we mentioned in the first episode, that scene was the takedown. She pinpointed every little fucking thing about him, and then he just put that little razor right on that side of the bathtub at her vulnerable moment, and
yeah, he said, "Have at that," and it's like, bro, ski, unnecessary.
I do have one here. It's silly. It's not anything in depth or anything, but I like the scene when Elspeth first meets Oliver, and she says, "Oliver, I have a complete and utter horror of ugliness. Ever since I was a child, I don't know why." And Felix goes, "Maybe because you're a terrible person." I don't know. I just think that's so silly. It's her line delivery, and just like she says it so bubbly, but it's like such a horrible thing to say.
Her voice is a cloud.
Yeah, it is a cloud. It is a cloud. But her just being like, I have a complete and utter horror of ugliness ever since I was a child. I don't know why. Like, what?
Yes. And then how whenever Felix is like, maybe because you're a terrible person, she just like slowly looks at him and she goes, and then they just walk in. She's like, come sit with me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. Cool. Well, I think that's all we have for Saltburn. Yes. I am going to leave it with one last little fact. And I remember after we recorded the first episode, I was like, yeah, that went pretty good. You know, there's obviously there's always more things you can talk about.
Always.
But I literally stopped and I said, fuck, I didn't say the one thing that people probably know, but it's such an interesting fact. And that is, do you know who produced this movie?
No.
Margot Robbie.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Really? She's just doing the damn thing out there, man. I love her.
She is good friends with Emerald Fennell, and Emerald was making this movie, and Margot said, let me fund you with some money here, and we're going to get this movie going pretty quick here. So, she produced the film, and it's, guys, the Margot Robbie, little Miss Barbie herself.
I love
so next time you're like, I love Barbie, but I hate Saltburn.
Right, it's like, check yourself.
That's your 6 degrees of Margot. Yeah, that's your 6 degrees of Margot Robbie right there, guys.
And one,
literally.
Done.
We got the Barbie connection with Saltburn. But I thought that's pretty. I think that's interesting. I don't know why, and I don't think it's obviously.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah, it's not like a hidden secret or anything like that, but I mean,
but it's interesting to see the actors who we've watched for so long, like, produce films and have these ideas and like backing people who have even bigger ideas. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I finally got that off my chest. That was bothering me since we were recording on the first one, so it haunted me for weeks. I was like, I didn't talk about Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I finally got that out. That's really. Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh no, go.
I was going to say another thing that haunted me from part 1. I was talking about Katrina Belf from Outlander, and I said her name wrong, and I was like, I have to fix it. It's Katrina, I think I said Katarina.
That's okay.
But yes,
right.
that is my fixture of yep.
Well, look at us.
Katrina Belf.
Undo what we didn't do the first time.
Yeah,
we'll probably have more. we'll have more of these part 2 episodes, I'm sure, of other
Absolutely.
movies. Cool. Well, guys, that is all I have for this episode, and that was Saltburn, the continuation conversation with the lovely guest, Brittany Cunningham. Brittany, I appreciate you doing this with me. I did too. Yeah, always such a good time chatting with you. So, thanks for jumping on this journey with me and agreeing to do all these episodes, and thanks for doing my first ever continuation episode of a film. So
glad to be a part of
that. We took a closer look at Saltburn.
Ooh. Love it.
Cool. Well, Brittany, again, I appreciate it. All of you listeners, thanks for tuning in and listening to us chit-chat a little bit more about Saltburn. And I promise we won't do a part 3. We said all we needed to say. I say that now, and then... Yeah,
we'll find something else, I'm sure.
We'll find something. I'll put it in the episode notes. Be like, by the by. And it'll be a novel.
Yes, a little essay.
Yeah, and I'll keep you guys all updated on my conversation with Emerald Fennell. LOL.
Perfect.
And I'll let you know about this prequel, sequel, mini-series, spin-offs. We got a whole brand here, guys.
Oh, yeah.
So, cool. Well, thanks again, Brittany. Listeners, thanks again. I will be back again with another episode super soon. Thanks for tuning in to Season 2. Be sure to check out the rest of my previous catalog episodes. And also be sure to check out the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.